Cliche, and my very favorite legal language, pro bono. 1986, I met my husband Edmund, and we met getting arrested together. So I have found the key to a very happy marriage. Nothing says, take me, I'm yours, like a pair of handcuffs. So, it's been a very interesting journey. I did bring books for sale. The link put in a shameless plug for that. My book, Abandoned, The Untold Story of the Abortion Wars. There are a few copies, I think, left on that back table. Unfortunately, the publisher didn't send the full amount of books, so we didn't have as many as I thought we were going to have. But if you wish to purchase a book, you can sign up, and I will absolutely guarantee that the publisher will send you the book. Okay? So pay for it now. The book will be sent to you, absolutely guaranteed, if you want a copy at that price, at the $15 price. Okay? What I'm going to talk to you about tonight, I basically call this speech the 3 lessons of abortion. And they are personal experiences that I've had that I do talk about in my book. But the first one, the first lesson, I would say around 1983, I was living in Chicago, and I was doing a lot of sidewalk counseling with my good friend Donna Rozeski, who spoke fluent Spanish, even though the last name doesn't make me think she did, but she did. Okay. And we were outside of the Albany Women's Clinic in Chicago, and there was a group of people praying the rosary out on the sidewalk in front of the door, and walking around kind of in a semicircle. And a woman comes out of the abortion center, and she is wearing a blue smock with a nameplate, and she started to ridicule the people praying the rosary. And Donna, who had very recently converted to Catholicism, was going to have none of that. And Donna had also had an abortion. So Donna admonished this person, oh, you think praying the rosary is so funny to you, or words to that effect? The woman came over to us, and she's very tall, because everybody's tall, me. She kind of brought herself up to her full height and kind of loomed over me. And she said, oh, I know all about the Catholic Church myself. I happen to be a Roman Catholic nun. Okay, so what planet are we on now? Of course, we were incredulous. It's not possible. You're working in an abortion clinic. There's no way you're a nun. You're messing with our heads, right? But then I don't know, I kind of looked her over. And she had short cropped hair, she wore glasses, she had kind of a genteel comportment, and she had intellectual confidence. And I said to myself, she looks kind of nutty. So she was maybe a runaway from a novitiate or whatever. Okay. So we were given with an interrogation. Okay, what's your name? Sister Mary. Like 100,000 nuns are named Sister Mary, right? What's your order? The Franciscan School Sisters of St. Francis. Where's your mother house? Kenosha, Wisconsin. So you should rattle that right off, right? Okay, what are we doing here? We got into a philosophical conversation because on the basis of our, what's word can you put, shock that she's working in an abortion clinic. So we said, how can you do that? The unborn are human. The science shows that the unborn are as a human being. What you're doing against their dignity, it's against justice, it's against God. She said, okay. I will grant you your premise. The unborn are human. They are as human as you or I. Doesn't matter. Now, going into this conversation, and maybe all of us in this room believe, or have believed, that if we can convince this culture, this society, that the unborn are human, we win. Right? Because we base ourselves on the premise that people don't like to kill other people. And if we can show that the unborn child is human, a human person, a human being, that abortion kills an innocent human life, we win. Wow. This was taking me places I thought I would never go. Doesn't matter. And I think this woman, this so-called nun, was ahead of her time. Because really that is where the pro-abortion movement is right now. Doesn't matter. So what was her philosophy? She even said, I am working in this abortion clinic to protect women from people like you. What did she mean by that? That we are there to interfere with, to restrict the woman's decision to do what she wants with her life. So the primary value is human liberty. And there should be nothing that stands in the way of self-determination. Human liberty is the highest value, and if you obstruct someone's personal liberty, even to make a decision over the life of another human being like an unborn child, you are doing an injustice to that person. Now, Sister Mary had a lot more in common with Nietzsche and John Paul Sartre, right, than she did with St. Francis of Assisi. Okay? But this opened up a whole new, and maybe I could even say, terrifying path that we have to walk in order to get to the end. You can, some people, absolutely, of course, will be convinced abortion is wrong, abortion should not be legal, the unborn should be protected, if we convince them that indeed the unborn are human. But there is a whole other contingent that's way beyond that argument. And we have to confront that as pro-lifers. So that was, dare I say, a rude awakening into what are we really facing here, folks? When we talk about, it's about philosophy. It's not about biology. It's about philosophy. It's about spirituality. You can have all the biological facts you want, but if you're confronted with that mentality, our battle is deeper and more difficult. So we need to be ready. Just to even know that, we need to be ready. My next lesson has to do with going to court. And the first rescue that I did, I was 24 years old, 1978, and Joseph Scheider organized it. I talk about this rescue in my book. We did the rescue, and we're going to give a little story here. Okay, so I moved to Chicago from Carbondale, Illinois. Okay, I have a degree in theater. All right, don't hold me against me. But anyway, but I was moving from theater to theology. So I was going through the teenagers. And so I was now a student at Loyola in Chicago. And I was a parishioner at St. Ignatius Parish, the Jesuit parish just down the street from Loyola. And I met a woman named Marcita Hett. And she was very involved in the pro-life movement. And she said, Monica, you want to go to a pro-life meeting with me in downtown Chicago? I said, okay. So we get on the L train, and to the Manhattan building, and we go to the 20th floor, and now we're in a conference room, and Joseph Scheidler was holding this meeting, and at that time he was the head of the Illinois Right to Life Committee. Well, it turns out that the meeting was to plan a sit-in at the Concord Medical Services abortion clinic in Chicago. Now, okay, time comes for who's willing to risk arrest. So I was just all in. And I mean, what excuse did I have? I wasn't married, I had no children, I'm basically a college kid, you know, I was all in. And so we did the rescue on March 11th, 1978. So that was my introduction into really radical, shall we say, pro-life activism, thanks to Joe Scheidler. So, as I said, I spent a lot of time in court. I've done a lot of rescues, and then we now we're doing these Red Rose rescues. Which if you want to know about that, just go to redroserescue.com and click on the About tab, and you'll learn about what is a Red Rose rescue. The last one we did was just this year, on July 30th, in Chester, Pennsylvania, at the Chester County Women's Health Clinic, and every single mom that was there to get her pill-kill abortion, because that's all they do there, had to leave the clinic without their pills. What an incredible victory that was. Every single baby got a reprieve of that execution, and every single mom had an opportunity to rethink her decision. It was incredible. Well, I moved to Milwaukee in 1985 to, again, hang out with the Jesuits at Marquette University. I was going to study for my PhD. So, since I was known as a rescue leader, and Milwaukee never had a rescue, we planned one. And so, we did this rescue where I met my husband Edmund on March 8th, 1986, at the Bread and Roses Women's Health Clinic. And so then I wound up in court. Okay. So we're on trial in front of Judge Patricia McMahon. We were charged with a new law that had been passed by the Wisconsin legislature, criminal trespass to a medical facility. And it was a law designed to protect abortion centers. Okay. So we got charged with criminal trespass to a medical facility. We had great attorneys, and we always asked for a defense of others, or a defense of necessity. So, for example, a defense of necessity. The usual example is if you have a reasonable belief that a house is on fire, and that someone is in the house and cannot get out, someone's in danger. What can you do that otherwise would be absolutely illegal? Bust down the door, break windows, go in, and rescue those people. Would you be charged with breaking and entering and burglary and damage to... No, of course not. That's okay. Well, that's basically the same argument we're using. We're conducting these rescues to prevent the killing of innocent human life that's going to happen in these abortion centers. Well, we get shot down, that defense is denied. Why? Judge McMahon ruled abortion is a constitutional right. Therefore, no injury is caused when abortions are performed. That this judge need take note of. And it is unreasonable for these defendants to believe that their actions were necessary to prevent these so-called injuries. Okay, I'm going to tell you, going into a courtroom as a pro-lifer is like entering an insane asylum. It's insanity. reality is, I mean, it gets worse. So now we're on trial without this defense of others or defense of necessity. We got some of our pro-life defendants take the stand, and they start talking about how they went to the Bread and Roses to stop the murder of innocent unborn children. And one of the defendants says that she saw a documentary on the Nazi Holocaust and just felt compelled that she couldn't just stand by while the innocent were being put to death. All of a sudden, Judge McMahon stops the trial. She sends the jury out of the courtroom. And then she starts admonishing our attorneys and us. And she says, I'm going to make some rules about what kind of testimony can be given in this trial. From now on, the defendants may not use the following words: abortion, murder, killing, embryo, baby, abortionist, abortion clinic, suction machine. What they have to say is doctor, abortion, medical clinic, fetus, and if you're going to refer to the suction machine, it's medical equipment. What are you crazy, right? But it's like I say, it's like entering an insane asylum. And I remember the reporter from the Milwaukee Journal was out in the hallway. So during one of the recesses, he comes up to me and says, "What do you think about Judge McMahon's rulings?" And I said, "Well, maybe we should have just pled insanity." Because obviously it's insane for us to go into an abortion clinic to try and prevent no injuries from happening. So there it is. How much worse can it get? We did a rescue, a Red Rose rescue in Michigan at the Northland Family Planning in April of 2022. In 2023. The sentencing for our conviction was on March 30th of 2023. Now, defendants have the right to address the court during the sentencing phase. Okay, so I did. And among other things, I said to Judge Cynthia Arvant, "Your Honor, in the objective world of right and wrong, I am not guilty." She said, "I don't operate in the objective world." I've been waiting for a judge to admit that for 45 years. I couldn't believe she said it. I don't operate in the objective world. What world are you in then, right? I mean, it's all craziness. Well, I should maybe explain. She wanted to put us on probation. She thought she was being merciful. Okay. But the probation is loaded up with a whole bunch of conditions. One of the conditions was that we had to stay for 18 months. We had to stay 500 feet away from every abortion center in the United States and hospitals that conduct abortions. I told her, that's like telling me not to feed the poor. No way could I agree to that. And that was the other thing. She demanded compliance. It's one thing to hand down the conditions, but you don't have to say, "I'm going to comply," right? So if that had been the case, I could have walked out of the courtroom. I would have broken that probation, but I wouldn't have agreed to it. She made us agree to it, and we told her there's no way we can agree to that. So we got the prison sentence out of it, but okay. Which we served in 2023. Now, where am I going with this? Abortion is based on a lie. And even something as fine, as noble, as great as the American judicial system can be horrifically corrupted by the denial of the truth. As something as I say, as noble, as refined, corrupted by the truth. The unborn are nothing when a pro-lifer goes into court. Now, it does, after Dobbs, it may depend on where you live. You're lucky to live in Texas. Come to Michigan. Right, exactly. So it was a big lesson. When I started out, I was naive. I thought, of course we're going to get the defense of others. Of course we're going to get we're going to have, the babies are going to have their day in court. And we're going to be able to show the facts of fetal development and the beauty of the unborn child and the development of the womb, and all of that went crashing down, and I couldn't believe it. So that was my lesson. My last lesson, and actually I would say this is the one that has had the greatest personal significance for myself. I am probably one of 50 people in the world that has actually retrieved the bodies of aborted babies from trash containers and trash dumpsters and so on. So the first time I had this experience, and again, I do talk about it in my book, was in 1987 when I was in Milwaukee studying for my PhD. Well, what happened, there's the abortion center in Chicago was the Michigan Avenue Medical Center, and it was right on Michigan Avenue, and I had done a lot of sidewalk counseling there when I lived in Chicago. And if you can envision, if you're familiar with Chicago, Grant Park is right across the street, and the famous Art Institute is just down the block. You can actually see the famous bronze lions if you stood at the door of this abortion center. What would happen is the guy, Cass Bogdan, who designed, remember the Yellow Pages? Designed the Yellow Page ad for the abortion center, had a falling out with the abortionist, Regaldo Florendo from the Philippines, and he knew a secret. And so he told Joe Scheidler, got a hold of Joe Scheidler, and said, you people could really stick it to this clinic. They're throwing the fetuses in the trash, in the alley, behind the abortion clinic. You could go get them. And we did. So Joe was headquartered in Chicago. The Pro-Life Action League, our group, Citizens for a Pro-Life Society, was in Milwaukee, because that's where I was at that time. Joe told me about what Cass Bogdan had said to him. So we started to make our late night treks to the alley, and the trash dumpster was up on a loading dock behind the building in the alley. And we open up the trash dumpster, and there are these blue bags, blue plastic bags, large, and they're very heavy. And indeed, those were the bags that had the boxes that held the babies. So this retrieval went from February through the month of April of 1987, and after which we had about 600 bodies. Those babies are buried at St. Mary's Cemetery at Evergreen Park, Illinois. Okay. Now, I'm thinking, I'm done. You know, this is not in our mission statement, okay, that we're going to run around trying to find babies in trash dumpsters. Now I can go on to more conventional pro-life work. 1988, a guy named Conrad Wunschner operated a string of pregnancy help centers in the Chicagoland area. he got a call from some anonymous person who worked at a pathology lab called VitalMed in Northbrook, Illinois. Now this person, and I don't know why I think it was a woman, maybe it was a man, but she told Conrad, out on our loading dock, we have boxes of fetuses that are getting picked up for incineration. You pro-life people could do something about it. So this person was having a pain of conscience. Conrad told Joe, Joe told me, and so beginning in February, again, February of 1988, we started making our treks to the loading dock. Now, Northbrook, Illinois is located equidistant 1 hour south of Milwaukee and 1 hour north of Chicago. So we took turns. One week our group would go, and then the next week people from Joe's Pro-Life Action League would go. The first night that I went was February 1988. And it was late at night, probably 10:30 at night. And by the way, the person who contacted Conrad told him, you can have access to this loading dock by a utility door that leads to a garage. And the loading dock is at the end of the garage. So we knew how we could get in to this area. So VitalMed was located in an industrial park. So we're winding our way through the streets. We finally figure out where is VitalMed. It's very dark, there's snow on the ground, it's very, very quiet. We open the utility door, and we are immediately confronted by a long concrete ramp that led down to the loading dock at the end of this large garage-type building. And so we're walking down the loading dock, down the ramp, I mean, and I could see the cardboard boxes up on the loading dock. We get to the dock, we jump up onto the dock, and we start opening the flaps of the boxes, and sure enough, they're filled with aborted babies. And they ranged anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months. And we did this mission of retrieval from February of 1988 through the end of October of 1988. And at the end of which we had about 5,000 bodies. And we did not get them all. So the year of 1988 was spent basically buried in the dead. And doing a lot of abortion victim photo photography. So we have a dedicated website for that photography, imagesofabortion.com. We felt it even in 1987, and we were using 35mm cameras. Remember those? Took a lot of pictures of the babies that we found at the Michigan Avenue Medical Center as well. Because we felt it was very, very important to document the injustice of what happened to these babies. To record it. So the people will know. You know, like the Nazi Holocaust? The pictures tell you the story of what happened to them. So what's the lesson? Well, here I am at a loading dock in an industrial park in Northbrook, Illinois. We knew exactly where these babies were aborted because they were in the boxes, shipped, parcel post from the abortion clinics themselves, and the addresses were on the boxes. So they were coming from all over the place. Raleigh, North Carolina, Wilmington, Delaware, Fairfield, New Jersey, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Fargo, North Dakota, some from Milwaukee, some from Chicago. I thought to myself, most likely these victims were conceived in Fargo, North Dakota, Raleigh, North Carolina. What are you doing here? Set out for trash disposal. In fact, some of the boxes had marked on the side for disposal. So we knew they were being picked up by a medical waste company of some sort. And believe me, Biomed was not doing one shred of pathology. This was a dumping ground, okay? This was the treasury of death. That's where we were. Now, we think, rightly so, that the injustice of abortion is that abortion denies innocent human beings their right to life. But I felt very keenly, and it was really even a sensation, almost a physical sensation, that something else is terribly wrong. It's not just, put quotation marks around that, not just that these babies were denied their right to life. Something else was wrong. And I felt very keenly what the aborted unborn suffer is a terrible, radical loneliness. That was their plight. Completely severed from human communion. Cast off, separated, isolated, alienated. No fathers, no mothers, no places where they were born, no family, set out on a loading dock for medical waste disposal pickup. And I even felt very keenly when we picked up the boxes and moved them towards ourselves that this was their first embrace. And I even felt, or it occurred to me, in the Christian religion we have the 7 corporal works of mercy. I felt, ironically, that the last work of mercy, which is to bury the dead, would be the first work of mercy that these victims would know. And I also felt, I am not at a physical place. No, I am, but I'm at a metaphysical place. Where am I really? What is this loading dock in a dark industrial park at 10:30 at night, picking up dead bodies? This is the edge of the world. I'm at the edge of the world. What is the edge of the world? The edge of the world is where the unwanted go. That's where we put them. And I had another analogy that the loading dock was like a raft. And the boxes had been stacked up on a raft, and then they were just pushed out into the ocean and just separated and floating off, disconnected from everything. So the very, very keen awareness that we were bringing them back into human communion. And we were going to honor them as the human beings that they were. So as I said, 1988 was the year of burying the dead. Now, my friend John Kavanaugh O'Keefe, who has also buried aborted babies, he wanted, he said each one of those aborted babies deserves his or her own individual funeral to honor the individuality. Well, we would still be burying the dead, okay, if that was the case. So we came up with kind of a compromise. We often sent the bodies back to the pro-lifers in the cities where these babies had been aborted. So that multiplied the grave sites all across the United States. So that was kind of our compromise there. So when you do pro-life work, you are not just, you can't get quotation marks around that, restoring the right to life to an oppressed people group. You're putting the world back together. That's what you're doing, right? What is disintegrated
you are making whole. I'm going to end my talk with a reflection and then maybe some words of encouragement. Okay. So, there is a grave of 1,200 of the aborted babies that we retrieved from VitalNet. 1,200 are buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in Milwaukee. And we did that burial on September 10th of 1988. Right near the grave is a monument that the cemetery erected, dedicated to all the unborn children buried at that cemetery. The marker reads, "Among these graves are included unborn children, victims of abortion." Just below that is an inscription from the first letter of John, chapter 3, verses 1 to 2. The reason why the world doesn't know us is that it never knew him. We are God's children now. I believe that we are going to see these children again one day. And we will then know whose smashed hands those are, whose severed arms those are, whose broken legs those belong to. And we will see them whole and healed and loved. And there will be one day a great justice and a mercy to the world that said to them and to Jesus, there was no room for you. Here we are in the post-Dobbs era, right? I know this may sound a little negative, but I don't think the pro-life movement was ready for Dobbs. Maybe Texas was ready, but the pro-life movement, I think, was in some ways caught off guard. Our culture is not there yet. What do we have to do in the post-Dobbs era? 3 things. Educate, educate, educate. We need, going back to what is reasonable, we at least have to convince people that the unborn are human persons. That abortion is a violence against them. It is a gross injustice. You wouldn't do that to a rat on the worst day of your life. What happens to an unborn child in abortion? Educate. Billboards, TV ads, yard signs, letters to the editor, seminars on fetal development. Get the signs out there. We have to convince our culture before you're going to see laws change and the unborn received and wanted and loved and respected as members of the human race that they are. Don't be afraid. The pro-life victory is not going to come, as probably you all well know, by thinking pro-life thoughts, but by pro-life action. And when all is said and done, what is abortion? Abortion is a radical spiritual crisis. Not a political crisis, not a philosophical crisis, a spiritual crisis. And we will overcome that crisis with radical acts of love, which means sacrifice. Don't be afraid of sacrifice. The pro-life cause is worth living for and dying for. So don't be afraid. Martin Luther King said, "A lie cannot live forever." This lie is not going to live forever either. I don't know if we're going to see the ultimate victory in our lifetime, but it's going to come. And I ask you just to never give up hope. All right? God bless you all. Thank you. round of applause. Wow.
Thank you for all you've done.